Welcome to this week's Pascal's China Lens, and this week we're going to talk about Chinese tech companies going global. Now, if I could ask you a favor, do share this video if you think it's relevant, because there's a lot of businesses in the West that one day, next year or in 3 years or 5 years, will be affected by Chinese competitors coming to our market, competing with us. And so we need to know what drives them to become our biggest competitors in the future. So will Chinese technology companies continue going global? Now, in 2020, it's very clear that the whole world started really distrusting Chinese technology companies. And it's a little bit because of what happened in the US first with Huawei and ZTE, later on WeChat and TikTok, and you know the story. I don't need to explain everything, but a lot of companies in China are banned from getting American or foreign products, innovation and technology, so they couldn't continue their innovation. The Five Eyes with Canada, UK, Australia, New Zealand are following America, but even Europe is following very strictly with data security rules, FDI regulations, talks about human rights. I mean, it's clear these technology companies in China have a hard time. And so if you would be a Chinese tech company, an Alibaba, a Tencent, a DJI, would you still want to go global? That's the question. Well, if you look at 2020, especially the second half of 2020, what we see is that China is doing pretty well again. They are COVID-free almost, and their trade is growing. Exports is growing really well. GDP is growing at almost 5%. There's again FDI that is growing, and most of these regulations with Huawei and WeChat and TikTok, the court has decided that the American court that they can't really ban completely these products or these companies, and so it's loosening up its regulations. So there's again hope for 2021. So I believe strongly that Chinese tech companies will continue to go global everywhere. And I believe that for three reasons. One is the market, the other one is quality, and the third one is the money. Now, if you look at the markets, I mean, it's very, very clear. If you look at Chinese companies, that the biggest value Chinese companies see in their company is the market they have. And so they're always looking at the market. We in the West look much more at what we have internal. We look much more at our IP, our people, our culture, things like that, our brand. Chinese, they really look at the market. And so the market's out there. It's not just in China, it's in the West. So they will still going to go global, and specifically they will go there where there's opportunity. And as we've seen with COVID-19, there's a lot of cracks in the system. I mean, we're not that united, and Chinese will find these opportunities amongst those cracks. That's for sure. So from a push perspective, China is going to go and continue to look for markets. Now, from a pull perspective, there's also something quite interesting, and that has to do with the fact that we want high quality. We want great quality of products. And Chinese have raised their quality. So except for the Chinese market itself, and maybe some countries in Southeast Asia, the biggest second market is the West for these high quality products now. So they will continue to sell to us. And to the rest of the world, they'll sell like the medium and the lower quality products that still haven't made it to high quality standards. Now, there's also the competition, which we should think about, that inside China is so fierce that ultimately some companies are compelled to go global. Think about what's happening with Alibaba and Ant Financial. I mean, they have great plans going global. And the whole world is putting money into Ant Group right now because they believe in that model. So the world still believes that China will become a global partner. And so that's from a market perspective. Now, the second thing is about quality. And again, there's a push and a pull. Now, when it comes to the push, I call that the boomerang effect. When you want to sell high quality in China at higher prices, at higher value, what you need to do is to prove that your product is of high quality. Now, the best way to prove it is to sell in Europe, sell in America, North America. Because if you sell there, it kind of proves that your product is a high quality. Look at what Geely did when they bought Volvo a couple of years ago, many years ago now. Well, it created a huge market inside China because suddenly Chinese found that Geely was high quality products. And not for the Volvo brand, actually for their Geely brand at that time. Now, same is happening with automotive other companies like Aiways, which we don't know about here, but they've sold almost 1,000 units in Europe, and that proves to their Chinese customers that this is a great, great brand. Now, the other thing is the pull. Chinese want to raise the quality of their products, raise the quality of their company. They need talent, they need intellectual property, they need to collaborate with the smartest people in the world. And that's why they will keep going global, because otherwise they can't do it fast enough. It will take them too long. And so we'll see that they're pulling in all these resources into China by going global and setting up R&D here or buying companies here if they're still permitted to, because they need that quality enhancement. So it's going to happen still. Now, the third thing is about money. And Chinese are very pragmatic. And so they're always following the money. And so where's the money going these days? Well, with the Belt and Road Initiative, it's very clearly going to the whole world. That's 138 countries in the world, outside of North America and some of the European countries. Most of the countries in the world are participating in Belt and Road. So there's going to be capital that is being made available. And although the problems with Belt and Road, because it's kind of still learning, you will see that Chinese tech companies are going to follow that money. Now, the other thing is the pull. And that's clearly the West, Europe, America, is still paying higher prices for the premium products that they get out of China. And so there's more money to be made here than in many other places in the world still. So they're still going to follow the money because that's where we're paying more. Now, it's primarily going to be hardware, and we don't look at hardware that much because China is the factory of the world, and selling that quality hardware to our markets, to our consumers in the West, actually makes sense, because especially when we have less money because of the crisis, now the COVID crisis, maybe later economic crisis, we won't want to pay much more money, but we will still want the same quality. China will offer that quality. It's going to be very hard for consumers to say no. But these devices, this hardware is becoming smarter and smarter. And there's more and more software involved, which means the Chinese tech companies will have to take care of regulation and understand what is really going on in those markets. And so the way that Chinese companies are going to go global is going to change. But I'm sure and convinced that tech companies are at their second round now of going global. They've learned a lot from all the mistakes that happened with TikTok, with WeChat, with Huawei. Even Geely is a very good blueprint for them how to do it well. And so they've learned from all these mistakes, and now they're going to use that knowledge to figure out how to address our markets in a much more sophisticated way. So I'm convinced Chinese tech companies are going to continue to go global, specifically to the West. But their model will be more sophisticated. It's going to be about target markets, niche markets, much more than pure opportunistic. It's going to be much more about quality and strategy rather than pure volume and production and price. And finally, it's going to be much more inclusive to understand the markets, understand the regulation, understand the consumers, instead of pure dumping the products on our markets. And this is a new China, a new model that I believe will awaken in 2021. And so we better watch what's happening, because this is really the new China that we will have to compete with in the future. I hope you liked it, and as always, do subscribe to my channel if you did. Thanks.